Well, let's now move on to our next panel discussion, and this is going to be the last one of the day. We're going to discuss on cybersecurity risk and requirements in metro networks, a deep dive. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a moderator, Mr. Burgess Cooper, partner, Deputy Cyber Leader, Consulting Services, EY. Mr. Ashish Upadhyay, Country Director, India, CYLUS. Dr. Coll Inderjeet Singh, CIO and Chief Cyber Officer, Vara Technologies. Mr. Dinesh Kumar, Senior DGM, IT, Mumbai Metro Rail Corporation Limited. Mr. Ashish Yadav, Rolling Stock Manager, Jaipur Metro Rail Corp. And last but not the least, Ms. Ritu Singh, Additional General Manager, IT, NCRTC. Well, I welcome all the panelists and the moderator, and I hope this is going to be a very interesting session. And now I would request the moderator to please take it forward from here. Over to you.
Thank you so much for inviting us. Good afternoon, everyone. Looking forward to a great session today. We have great sort of fellow panelists. So Ashish Upadhyay, Dr. Inderjeet Singh, Ritu Singh, and Ashish Yadav. And today's topic is cybersecurity risks and requirements in metro networks, a deep dive. We've seen the era of cybersecurity. It's on top of mind of every board. It's gone from a server room to a boardroom. Cyber is the top 3 risk facing all CEOs. It starts with IT risk, but it's more important, SCADA, OT, 6. With this, I'd like to invite Colonel Inderjeet Singh to give his opening comments on what does he feel the impact of cybersecurity, especially in our segment of discussion today.
Yeah, thanks for a wonderful panel, and thanks for hosting me here. And Burgess, good to see you after a long time. It's really a pleasure always to meet you. And while we talk of the railways and how the metros have been, hit by the cyber attack, so it's also not devoid of any cyber attacks to be hit. And we saw recently, the hacker had disrupted the Iran's railway service with a fake delay messages, right? So it happened. And then we also saw sometime back in 2016, the ransomware attack on the ticketing system in the San Francisco transport network. So, more or less, cyber is targeting, all the cyber attacks are targeting the metro networks, the railway networks today, and all the IT and the OT network, which we always used to kind of, have a air gap. But that's no more kind of a air gap environment, because there's so much of signaling networks which are there, there's so much of track information which is passed on, there's so much of messaging boards information which is to be given to the passengers. So much information which is there that has to be passed on to different people, and the complete railway network has become a major challenge. So we have to have the things very clear what is there in the OT. So the Operation Control Center, which generally comprises in a metro network, that's the train management system, your passenger information system, your train safety system, your security operations center, all those things, when they are connected onto the SCADA, and also the track interlocking, your train control management, positive train control systems, and your energy systems, the power grid, which is powering up of all the trains. So if we see then, it's a very precarious situation today. All of them get connected to the internet, some form or the other, right? And anything which is getting connected to the internet, and we try and put firewalls to, secure them, it's a bigger challenge, because that's where we are kind of, making the systems vulnerable. They are susceptible to cyber attacks, ransomware attacks, name a thing. It's only that we are just waiting for those attacks to happen. Some of the informations which we generally want to have is like the governments really want to have the information on various kind of reports, which is given to the IT. That's coming from your OT networks. How do you really pass it on, right? Your cloud-based architecture, and like we got so many sensors on board a train, a Wi-Fi network which is connected on the train, your other sensors which give you, time-based information to the messaging boards, your security monitoring system, that all form part of vital networks in any metro rail network. So that is the challenge. And your mobile apps, and just see this, because all the information which is there on the boards has to be pushed onto the mobile apps, and that's all happening real time. Even maybe that the COVID-19 occupancy report, how many people are COVID positive or negative, if they're getting onto the board. So all those locomotive locations, locomotive information, schedules, the time systems, your track management, all those kind of informations are all, which is there in the OT, is actually getting connected to the IT. And that is where the problem lies with us in the metro network, as to how do we really secure these kind of networks, because we have the erstwhile firewalls. We try and secure it through firewalls, but firewalls are not the best solution because they are all vulnerable. All the CVEs are put on the internet. So how do you really secure? So I will discuss on that particular aspect. As an opening remark, we are in a very critical situation when it comes to the metro as a cybersecurity is concerned, because we are susceptible to cyber attack. It's only that we are waiting for one to happen. Just over to you, Burgess.
Thank you, Inderjeet, for your opening comments. No more air gaps, too much messaging information, and you give the Iran attack. Lovely opening comments. Thank you so much for making it so interesting from us. Nothing to start better than an attack scenario and seeing what happened. I'll move on to Ashish Upadhyay. Ashish Upadhyay, from your perspective, cybersecurity challenges, trends, depth, especially in our rail and metro sector. Your opening comments, please.
Sure. So, hello, Mr. Burgess, and hello, Mr. Inderjeet as well. Hi, Ritu. From my side, Mr. Inderjeet, definitely you have touched upon those important areas where there is a huge gap, okay, not only in terms of using those firewalls kind of a thing in the railway ecosystem. But let me give you an example, because cyber attack on critical network like railway have serious implications and negative consequences. Because in railways currently, if we talk about the different systems that are talking to each other, it's a very complex environment. 20 to 25 systems are talking to each other, and these systems were designed to be safe, okay, not secure. So safety is primary in railways, and definitely safety integrity levels is already there. But in terms of security, it's kind of a huge gap right now, okay. And currently we have redundancy of the servers, and these servers is opening the doors to more attack scenarios, okay. When we talk about posing an example of Tehran or some other examples of attacks happening in this environment, so let me tell you, when we talk about the numbers, there is a 173% rise in cyber attacks only on the railway environment, and it causes $1 billion which is lost per account. And these kind of attacks are not only posing. So these are different kind of an attack. So which is like ransomware, malware, denial of services. And cyber attack doesn't happen on day one. Okay, hackers are into the system for 6 months, a year time, and they wait for a certain time where they can compromise the things. So currently in the country, people don't know if the hackers are into the system. We recently realized that the same traces of malware that were there in the electric grid attack in Mumbai were found in the Indian railway system as well, right? So these are the things. And if we talk about firewalls are nothing but filters, 1 or 0. Either they allow the communication or they will not allow the communication. And these are not the right solution. Firewalls can be easily breached. Okay, so this is one part. And definitely digitalization, the topic that we have discussed earlier, it has brought more IoT devices, sensor, predictive maintenance technology, more additional, I would say advanced CCTV cameras or AI-based things into the same ecosystem, which is opening more gates to cyber attacks. And definitely now we are moving towards open loop ticketing system as well. So there are various scenarios, there are various use cases through which the systems could be compromised. And hackers knows that railway systems can be easily compromised. And definitely there is a myth of having a closed loop or an air gap system, and this should I think there should be a proper cybersecurity posture that should be followed across the whole rail organization, because there are insider threat as well, which is nothing but employees unknowingly create risk to the system. This is super important. Okay, and with that I would like to close my comments and move forward. Yeah.
Thanks, Ashish, for opening comments. 173% rise, 1 billion USD. Cyber attacks don't happen on day one; they are in system for long times. The same attacks on the electric grid were also found out here, and firewalls can be breached. Thank you. Important attacks are here to stay. They're more persistent, they're more ferocious, and they're much more longer, and they're more stealthful. With this, I'll move on to Ritu. Mrs. Ritu Singh, your opening comments, especially from your perspective of NCRTC.
Yeah, thank you. I think very good and interesting discussion that is going on, and I found my comments from my colleagues very relevant, at least in terms of what the sector that we are in, the transportation sector, wherein any kind of security breach or cyber attack not only will impact onto the brand name or your data security aspect of your organization, but will also have a huge impact on the passenger safety. Hence, from that perspective, cyber security is something which is on top of our minds as technology experts in our organization. And if we talk about our sector, maybe a few years back or a decade back, the systems were running with a good air gap, because the kind of proliferation of your mobile applications or information systems through which you want to pass on the information to your commuters or public in general was not that huge. Whereas now, if we consider our systems, even the kind of occupancy that you have in your rolling stock, you want to pass on that information to your commuters for enhancing the service level of service, which has given rise to newer risks in terms of cyber security. And then there are multiple IT and OT systems which are part of your complete ecosystem, which are interconnected, and you are never sure whether a very small IT or OT system, which is very irrelevant in your landscape, may pose a huge cyber risk for you. Hence, I think, and another aspect which is there in my mind is there is always a very fine balance which has to be maintained when you are managing security and flexibility or user friendliness within your ecosystem. If you have too stringent security implementations, you might compromise onto the flexibility of your system. Hence, what I'm trying to say is you need to design your complete ecosystem from day one, so that keeping security in mind, so that you are able to achieve the kind of flexibility that you want to achieve, but at the same time, you are secure from all the aspects. So that is one part of it. And another comment quickly I wanted to add here is cyber security, which is a very critical aspect while designing any system, is not a one-day task. In a traditional mindset, we used to consider cyber security as an audit kind of a exercise, where once in a year you audit your systems and find out the vulnerabilities which are there and you fix it. Whereas in current world where things are so dynamic, you need to be on your toes all the time. Hence, it has to be a continuous evolution in terms of enhancing the security in the system. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ritu. Clearly, a very important point you brought about is not just damaging IT infra or rail infra, but also a very persistent thing about safety of human lives, which can be happen. You're never sure what small systems can cause cyber attack. It's a fine balance. You can't have more security, can't have less. So very well spoken. Thank you for your lovely opening comments. And now I'll call Mr. Ashish Yadav, a rolling stock manager for Jaipur Metro Rail. So from your comments, you've had perspectives from Ashish about the types of attacks, for Inderjeet about the Iran attack, Ritu on how it can have health and safety. What are all your opening comments from a cyber perspective for today's discussion? So, Mr. Ashish Yadav. Okay, maybe he's occupied or have some connection. So, Ritu, back to you. So we all agree that attacks are here. We agree that cyber attacks are going to be there. But just saying attacks and fate and company is not the way. Other companies, other industries have potentially gone through the attack. Let's say banking. 10 years back when we were CISOs, banks were most attacked. Today it's manufacturing, it's more critical services. What are the lessons one can learn from a bank and telecom who have more stringent attacks earlier, who have now more stringent compliances, and hence have put in defenses from which you can learn? So, Ritu, from your perspective, what are the learnings you can get from other industries who potentially have been attacked earlier, and we don't have to go through the same painful journey of undergoing attack and then learning? We can learn from some of those. So, Ritu, your view?
Yes, I think the learnings that we have gathered from these organizations which you mentioned would be one, no one is shielded from these attacks. No matter how big you are or how nascent you are, it is always good to have a well-defined security policy in place. Second is internal security threats. Unknowingly or knowingly, your employees should be aware of all kind of these security attacks or kind of potentials of security attacks. Hence, a mindset within the organization should always be there where everyone is vigilant and is aware of repercussions of different acts that they perform, be it you're managing your passwords or using the critical subsystems and those kind of things. So hence, I think the mindset should flow within the organization from top to bottom. And I think since we are dealing with public, like other domains, where the customer data is maintained, we do have a huge volume of customer data, which has to be again secured in a that those are a few learnings, I think, which are
clearly awareness, secure data, large volumes. Ashish, what about technology solutions? Is a retrofit of a same solution happening in a bank and telecom? Can there be same multiplied here, or are there specially solutions for critical infrastructure like rails and metro units, which may need more? See, in a bank and telecom, it's CIA. The confidentiality and integrity in telecom is more important than availability. But for us in metro and rail, the A factor of CIA is more important. It has to be available immediately, and then you get the CI&I, which is also more for SCADA and OT and petrochemical. So what are the learnings one can opt from a petrochemical industry or others from a tech perspective?
Right. So I would like to address it in two parts. So first part is more on the technology side, and other part is the regulatory side. Okay. Let's focus on regulations first. Okay. In petrochemical or industrial environment, there are some kind of standards that we follow. Okay, even the IT security or OT security solutions are basically oriented towards these kind of regulations. So in industrial side, we generally go with IEC 62443, which is an industrial OT standard. Okay, and this is this standard is also relevant to railway, okay? Because in railways also you can say that in railway system there are small mini computers that are working and talking to each other, right? So this is one part. Second part is if we talk about the industrial environment, or if we talk about the IT environment, they also do a lot of audit and assessment, so risk assessment, okay? There are regular audits, and definitely I will take one point from Ritu, which is corporate governance is super important. There should be a right cybersecurity posture, guidelines, and this part. So because it is people, process, and technology, right? So we have to have everything from top to bottom. If we talk about the railway is a complex and a different environment altogether, okay? In railways there are multiple OEMs which are working multi-vendor technology. They are installing their systems into the network. So rolling stock would be coming from some different supplier. Maybe there will be a signaling system from different supplier. DCS could be coming from different supplier. Some other asset management, predictive maintenance, ERP. There are a lot of systems that they have. And if these systems were not designed to have that security mindset, okay, so any leakage from these OEMs can create a loss to the holistic environment altogether. So what happened is, if we talk about the regulation side, again, I'm coming back to the topic. So CENELEC recently in 2021, they created a technical standard called 5701, CENELEC TS 5701, which is a rail cybersecurity standard. That should be the prime basis to basically build any kind of, if you're embedding any technology into the railway environment, it should have bare minimum this particular certification to be in place, okay? So that what will happen is this standard is applicable to the holistic railway environment, not only for rolling stock, signaling, SCADA, ticketing. It is a Bible, I would say, for the whole holistic ecosystem. So this should be the focus, and the solution or the technology that we are adopting in the railway environment should able to understand the railway proprietary protocols. Because there could be legacy systems that are working into the ecosystem. After 5 years, you would be adding more advanced technology, but you cannot have two cybersecurity solutions on board, right? You need to secure the legacy systems as well, new systems that are getting connected each and every day, or maybe the new lines that you are adding in future. So one solution should cater to the holistic environment. We should understand the IT, OT, and all the subsystems all together, and this system should able to comply with these regulations like IEC 62443 or TS 5701, so that we get the best in class world product altogether. So that's my comment.
Thank you. We can learn from the IEC 62443 standard. Inderjeet, from your perspective, is there something you'd like to add? We saw Ritu mentioning on the people aspect.
Yeah. Burgess, I like to add to what Ashish has been adding, and wonderful point. I think you brought in the 62443, and I'd like to add to more on the technology front of it. So practically, what is happening is that there are a whole lot of signaling system, or there's a traffic management system, which is a OT side in the whole metro network. Even the power system, which is there in the OT side, and the train control management system, right? Now they're all being controlled through PLCs, which are there, and they're being on the SCADA, and they're working that way. They have a huge network which gets connected. Now they are the OT side is being passing the data onto the IT, or they are being air gapped in a way. They have a firewall, and that's what I was trying to bring out the point, that firewalls are always software based. They have the vulnerabilities because all the CVEs which are there, they're all listed on all across the world, on all the Microsoft sites, or anywhere the hardware company which is listing it. And that's what the hackers really try to exploit those vulnerabilities, because you're listing it to them. And how many times you really update those devices which are there in your OT network, right? So updation becomes a major challenge of your OT network itself, right? All the PLCs, all the SCADA systems which are there. So that's another challenge. So one way of having a very secure methodology of security of OT and the IT is like, instead of going what he brought it out was very pertinent. You can't have what are protocols, proprietary protocols, And firewalls generally work on the protocols on the IP layer, right? And they try to communicate on the application, which are IP-based applications, which are the PLCs. They have their own, PI or the historian or the OPA, which are there. They are working on their own. Now, how do you really communicate with the IT side? Because you need to have those information passed on. So one solution or one mindset which is already working on across the world is, instead of having a software-based firewall, though we call firewall a hardware device, but it's a software. It's a allow policies. If you just put the policies, it will work. So going for a unidirectional gateways where you're able to push the data which you wanted only from the vital system to the IT system, right? And you can have that protocol agnostic behavior which you can incorporate in those hardware unidirectional gateways where you only communicate what is required. Okay, so any of the malware or the ransomware or the cyber threat what we talk of, they require to open up a command and control center at any time whenever there is a malware which is embedded in the system. That's how they really work, right? So there are very few, like the Stuxnet, which worked on its own without any command and control. So we are not going to be talking of that particular case. But then the other malwares or the ransomwares which they have the the gateway backdoor, which is a command and control, which is operating backwards. And here, when you have a gateway, unidirectional firewall, it is communicating OT to IT, and you also try and update all the OT data which is required for reporting in the real time on the IT network, right? So that kind of arrangement, which is the future, I think that's the way ahead for securing all the metro networks today, because firewalls are always hackable, firewalls are always vulnerable, and it's only that even if you have two, one this side and one other way around, it's still that vulnerability will always exist. So having a gateway like that, a hardware gateway like that, it's a really a good situation. One, it will be able to secure all the metro railways, all the signal system, all the SCADA system, and also you're communicating backward to the IT, because that's how, because we have the IIoT devices coming up, we have all the sensors which are being put in place, we have other kind of information systems what we are doing it, we are connecting to the AWS or a cloud for communication, for management. So that's, I think we have to think of unidirectional firewall or the gateways which really work in all those metro networks. Over to you, please.
Thank you so much for giving introduction on the hardware firewalls, one-way firewalls. So we got process controls mentioned by Ashish. We've got the part by Ritu mentioned how the data flows, and also Inderjeet mentioned on tech controls. Important point to you, Ashish. What about the people part? I mean, how trained are people from a traditional instrumentation engineering, rail engineering, to be able to detect a cyber attack from a normal breakdown? As we go more on cloud, as we go more on SCADA, as we go more on 62443 type of controls, what is the training angle? Cyber is a shortage, but training cyber in OT, SCADA, and rail would be an extreme shortage. How are you able to narrow the gap? Where are you hiring from? How are you training your engineers who are instrumentation based to be talk the cyber tech language? How do you map the air gap, Ashish?
Sure. So, so the bottom line is there is a lack of cyber talent in the industry, in the rail industry. Yes, everyone knows that. And what is happening here in India right now is when we talk about the the new national cybersecurity strategy 2020, which came in. Okay, so there was, after post that, this was adopted by the Ministry of Railways as well, and now there was a new I would say a new position that was created, which is called CISO. CISO is pretty much new to the Indian, railways or the metro ecosystem, because there, which is currently, if we talk about CISOs, they are in the rank of AGMIT, GMIT, or GGMIT. Okay, so Group General Manager and this one. But now these CISOs are getting trained in the cyber security, and this currently in the country, this training is getting done by CDEC. okay, which is our one of the our primary body from Ministry of Electronics and IT. But however, they don't have again an experience in the railway ecosystem. So what has been done from our side is to fulfill this particular gap. If you talk about CYLUS, CYLUS is a company which is where it was founded by the experts from IDF, Israel Defense Force Elite Technological Unit of 81, 8200, which is like the best in the world, and they actually hired the system architects, consultants from the bigger OEMs, the named OEMs like Alstom, Siemens, Thales, Hitachi, Nippon Signal. It is a marriage, and with that there was a lot of exchanges that happened, and we created some kind of rail OT modules to train the right people, okay, and just to fill this gap, because it cannot be done in one night, okay. We also focused on creating a security operations center for the railway industry, which is first in the globally. This is the first state of the art security operations center in India, okay. And here the people who are managing this security operations center, they are the cyber security experts, and they have been trained in the railway side. So most of the work in terms of having that tier 1 or tier 2 monitoring of the events that is happening into the network of railways, it is done by them. It is reported to the right people into the rail companies, the organization, and then the right steps are taken forward. So this is the part that we are filling in right now, and everything is done in the country.
Thanks, Ashish. Clearly, SOC will improve, CISOs will improve. Ritu, from your perspective, maybe Inderjeet can come inside. What are the compliances effect? Is it NCIPC? The Power Ministry recently gave a 14-point article. What compliances affect our sector? Is it something we do on our own, or are we unbound on some NCIPC type of guidelines? And who audits us?
As of now, if I tell you that the kind of focus that till now people had on cybersecurity was just limited to C. compliance, C. empaneled agency auditing our system annually and giving us an audit report and vulnerability report, and once that is complied to, we were good to go. But going forward, as Ashish rightly mentioned, I think security as a service is the way forward, which even NCRTC is planning to go forward with.
Thank you. Inderjeet, your perspectives on the compliances, audits, the entire framework to ensure we are secure?
Yeah. So NCIPC has already declared it as a critical infrastructure, right? And what Ashish also was bringing out, IEC 62443 compliance, and the Indian National Cybersecurity Policy, and what we are seeing in the National Security Strategy, which will going to come up maybe this year. We see the light of the day for that. So those compliances are going to be there. Like the Power Ministry, we are going to have a similar kind of security posture for the railways and the metros, because that is a very area which requires a lot of work, a lot of deliberation, and in times to come, those policies, processes, and people and the people have to be there, because training would be the most important, and this will in fact depend on how safe we want to have it, what is the reliability of the complete system, how we are going to make it more fully functional as a cybersecurity safe metros.
Okay, so in other companies like telecom and industry power, there's a potential restrictions on what equipment you can use and you cannot use. Ashish, are there similar restrictions on the rail and the critical infrastructure also, that for some countries or some equipment there has to be a test lab and has to be tested before it's put in production? So Ritu and Ashish, are there similar restrictions also in our rail and metro industry?
So definitely for railways, we do have some standards that needs to be adopted. So if there is any onboard deployment of hardware that is going into rolling stock trains, basically, so it should be EN 50155 certified product, because rolling stock is basically susceptible to vibration, shocks, temperature difference. So the hardware which goes there should be certified and used from the railway standard itself. So similar thing. But in terms of if the deployment is happening into the OCC or Security Operations Center, we generally follow the IT standards as of now. Same, you can use the right specified vendors who are supplying the servers. Okay. However, the software or the intelligent platform, it should have been designed in such a way that it should basically help rail companies to comply with these regulations, which is super important. And these software or these solutions should, so we talked about firewall, which is a kind of hardware software. We have done a discussion, but if we talk about these standards, they talk about creating a virtual segmentation of the network, which is super important, right? Based on the different kind of grouping. So railway has like different kind of groups, and one of my point machine should not talk to the other interlocking unit. And if there is any malicious, so there should not be any unauthorized train movement. There should not be any there should not be not any abnormal point machine movement. So these are the different things, and with that, the right solution should go into the ecosystem. And I would say after adding a lot of different I would say radio-based communication. Okay, there are different kind of solutions that are also going on in there. So Ritu, I wanted to pass it to you.
So an important question, Inderjeet. In all our other industries, we do attack and brand simulation. We do different mock attacks, cyber war games. Have we known, and question open to all three of you, Inderjeet, Ritu, or Ashish, are there simulations, mock attacks, being run, being planned to say if another country attacked us, would we be able to be resilient? How would we be able to come back?
Yes.
If there were ransomware cases, what type of breach solutions gets done?
So it's a very critical infrastructure, and here also we have the simulations. We have the attack surface which we analyze. We try to work it out as to what could be the kind of challenges it would be there, how fast we are going to recover from that attack. So that is part of the simulation games. And also, the cyber training becomes very important for this case, where we want to train people on those kind of simulations. So this is very much important, because if you are able to train people, if you're able to simulate those kind of attacks, we'll be able to come out of it. Otherwise, we always say that we are the best in security, nothing's going to happen, right? So that's the bottom line, which every CISO says. But whenever there's a cyber attack, it really happens and really creates a damage. And in fact, if you remember, there was a challenge on the IRCTC itself some time back, right? So even the ticketing system also is part of a cyber threat, right? So anything which is concerning secure, and it has to be red teaming exercises has to be done. The teams have to be ready, and we should monitor all the networks. So any network which is exposed to the internet, believe you me, it is susceptible to attack. Okay, and would be a ransomware attack or any other attack which is there, but we have to be prepared for it. We should do the threat intelligence and attribution part, and we should work on the simulation as to what's going to happen next, right? So those kind of tools, especially the threat intelligence and attribution tools, it becomes a very important part of the overall security architecture for the metro networks as well. Over to you, please.
Adding on to what Inderjeet just mentioned, I would like to just add one thing, that since these systems are very critical and there is a stringent processes and practices already in place while implementing them, wherein we do all kind of mocks and drills to find the vulnerabilities and susceptibilities of these systems. But then always there is scope where we can improve those drills and have more secure systems.
Right. From my side, I would like to add, so definitely, whenever systems are getting deployed, they should go through a robust testing cycle. Okay, and in terms of the systems, there are different penetration testing mechanisms that can be adopted as well. The other side is in the testing, during the testing, there are again training there are cyber playbooks through that people can get trained, but there should be a mechanism where if there is any, because it's a game of cat and mouse. Okay, you have to be a little bit ahead of them. Recently this log4j came and it took the industry by storm. So you just need to think what exactly I need to do if there is any attack happens. Should I stop my train? Should I, what exactly I need to do? So we have to create some processes. We need to have some kind of right training that if my assets are getting compromised or if there is any denial of services, what could be the worst case scenario and what should I do? So I think we have to think towards that part as well.
Thanks, Ashish. So thank you, Ashish. Thanks, Ritu. Thanks, Inderjeet. We had a great discussion today, right from attacks, different scenarios, human intelligence, CTI, tendencies, war gaming, one-way firewall, hardware, training our people. Ritu, as you mentioned, it's not just technology, but human lives. As you mentioned, the ticketing systems, and Ashish, you mentioned overall cybersecurity and the resilience is most important. Back to the organizers. Thank you so much. Great discussion, great learnings. Back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really pleasure to meet you all.
Pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.